Hold on, I gotta go turn on my fan so I don't get all sweaty.
There
Cue.
you go. 2, 1. Nathan, how about you? What is your internal cooling system over there in Denver, Colorado?
I wear black shirts for a reason.
Makes
What?
a lot of sense.
Hey, what does it look like? What does it look like? Your beard and your hair is flowing like Marilyn Monroe. What's going on there?
Fan here, fan down here.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Cult of Recreationalism podcast. I'm your host, Sean Lake, along with Nathan Morris. And on today's show, we've got Dave Newman. Nathan, tell me a little bit about Dave.
So Dave, I put some bullets together. Let me know if I missed anything or if I got anything wrong. Dave is the founder and CEO of RX Smart Gear. He used to work in real estate and owned a boutique firm. He coached gymnastics at San Diego State, where he met his now wife, who was she was a coach. You didn't meet her like she was an athlete coaching, I'm assuming on that.
Correct.
I never know. She might be a student athlete coach.
Nope.
RX Smart Gear, he ran it out of his house while his wife was at work, which I have questions about that for sure. He has taught countless people their first double unders and crossovers. And like I mentioned, he was a former gymnastics coach before he kind of got into the jump rope world. So Dave, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be on with you guys.
Yeah.
Nice. So you are in San Diego. Are you like a lifer? You've been here your whole life, or are you part of the transplant? I came here 30 years ago, fell in love with it, and never left type deal.
I'm more of the latter. So yeah, I moved here 38 years ago to start college, but coincidentally, I was actually born in Oceanside, Tri-City Hospital Vista.
No kidding. All right. I know that hospital.
Yeah. So I spent the first year or so of my life there, and then father was career military, so took us all around the world, and then finished high school in Arizona, and moved straight out and been here ever since. My wife is born and raised here her whole life.
Nice. So deep San Diego roots. I mean, you're literally from North County, San Diego. She's from San Diego. You left because obviously military family. That's super common in San Diego.
Yep.
All right, there we go. So I didn't know that. So when you came back, was it because of those early roots, or was it just, hey, this is where I want to go to college?
Yeah, just to go to college. To be honest with you, didn't know much. I mean, I was a year old when we moved away, so I don't even feel like I'm from North County. It's funny when you just said that, like from North County, because right now to me, you North County guys, you're the ones with like the pristine beach breaks, and you know what I mean. You guys have like the less crowded beaches and the cool community up there. But yeah, honestly, had no recollection or experiences with San Diego. Had never been back in growing up, and so my brother and I, we were actually living in Victorville, California, if you know where that's at.
I do know Victorville. That's a warm part of the state.
Oh yeah, it was not ideal. I mean, that was kind of like paying our penance when we came to the state. Like, okay, you got to live somewhere shitty for a while, and then we'll let you parole out. And so it was just kind of happenstance. But our oldest brother had just gotten out of the service, out of Fort Irwin, which is up there by Barstow, and wanted to stay in the area because he started dating a gal, and so we all three moved in together, and we thought, well, this is a good chance just to get in-state residency before we pick a college. And it literally just picked San Diego on a map. The funny story about that is there was
hold on. I want that story, but pause.
Okay.
You literally were picking where you were going to college based on just a map of California going, that looks warm. Or
99%, like honestly, 99%. There was the 1% was the story I was going to get into. Was there was a liquor store close to where we were all renting a house, and there was a cute girl worked at that liquor store, and she told us that she was moving to San Diego to be in a sorority, and she drove cute little convertible VW Bug, the kind of the newer model VW Bugs. And so when we were looking on a map, we wanted to be somewhere along the coastline. And, we're like, okay, Huntington Beach, Long Beach, we're kind of moving down Del Mar. And then we said, hey, isn't that girl at the liquor store moving to San Diego? Let's go check it out. So literally drove down, spent the weekend and said, okay, this is where we're coming. And yeah, never looked back. So
David, so this is why I love this. Number one, my approach to going to college when I was in high school, I took what I can only refer to as like the punk rock route, where I was like, I only want to go to colleges where I don't have to write an essay. And the essays are usually like the most thoughtful part of revealing
yeah,
who you are, what your interests are, what your drive is. Like, there's a lot of components to writing your college essay. I was like, I don't want to write a college essay. I was such a little punk rock dick. And you were like, that's me just being like spiteful and not really understanding how the world works. You, on the other hand, were going like, that girl is pretty cute, and San Diego sounds really good to me.
cute girls and beaches, cute girls and beaches. Yeah, for sure. It
Smart.
worked.
That was
It
different
worked.
than my choice of Central Missouri. No
Oh,
beaches.
how'd you pick that?
I grew up in Missouri. I grew up right outside
Okay.
Kansas City, and then so I went to University of Missouri. And it was I didn't have to write an essay though, Sean. I don't know at that time it was if you had at least a 24 on your ACT, it was automatic acceptance. So that was the
Oh,
only
cool.
school I applied to. I was looking at a few, but then that one after I toured it, I was like, I really want to go here, and I already had the test score to get in, so that was the only place I applied.
Yeah, you kind of, I mean, that's a bit of a layup too, right? You're just like, oh, well, I got this one.
Yeah, but a minimum 24. I think I scored a 21 on my essay or my ACT. So I wouldn't have even been able to get into your school.
Well, it was like there was some kind of like sliding scale. Like 24, you automatically got in, but if you had like a 23 and you were the top 20% of your class, or 22 and you're the top 15, like there was a scale to it. So
So,
Man, I
what
wouldn't
I think what he's
make
saying
it
is,
in.
yeah, you had a real small chance, razor thin chance to make it into that
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
San
I don't
Diego,
think.
on the other hand, sounds like that was a layup.
Yeah, San Diego was not so bad. Not so bad at all.
So you basically cruised down to San Diego, and then that was it. You dropped anchor, like you never left.
Never left. Yeah, I've been ever since. Absolutely.
And were you like, tell me a little bit about your gymnastics journey, because obviously we know that you're the founder of RX Smart Gear. You've been really active in the CrossFit space, but the gymnastics background that kind of led to that. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so I was never a high performing gymnast. Didn't go to any like big clubs and train to a competitive level. Was introduced to gymnastics when I was in junior high school, actually in Georgia, Fort Benning, Georgia, living on base there, and it was awesome. I mean, they literally spent I forgot how many weeks, but really teaching us parallel bars, and we had to develop a little routine on parallel bars, on floor exercise, which was just tumbling strips, just kind of the carpet bonded foam rolled out, and you just had to perform a sequence of rolls and cartwheels and handstands. I mean, all very rudimentary stuff, but pommel horse, they had a little mushroom where you could practice your circles. So I think about that now, and I'm like, how lucky was I to get that experience? Because now, I mean, in school, don't even, I mean, it's a joke. You couldn't even imagine. So yeah,
Well,
so
you
that was
don't have it in school like at all. It's
at
all
all.
club activity paid for.
Yeah.
Like you got to go after it, and just open up your wallet.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so from that, introduction, I just, you know, got hooked and just became a backyard gymnast, like walking on my hands, doing backflips, round off backflip, just, whatever I can just go kind of huck and learn how to teach myself basically. So I was never formally trained gymnast. And then, so, I always call us a backyard gymnast. And when I moved to Victorville to just spend time to get in-state residency, I got a job at a glass factory, a glass manufacturing plant it was open 24 hours, and they had a day shift, a swing shift, and a night shift, a graveyard shift, and we would have to work all three. Like your schedule would rotate every week, and you would work all three
Oh,
shifts. But a gymnastics gym opened up literally on the same block, and I would drive past it on my way home. And I just stopped in one day just to see if they had any open gym. A lot of, gymnastic gyms would have an open session that people could just come and tumble around, get up on the rings, get on the high bar, do whatever. So I started doing that, and, met a great group of friends that we'd spend a lot of time together and train together. And it was just, again, just fun gymnastics stuff, right? Just trying to teach ourselves new skills and whatnot. So, but, I got decent enough to like, I could swing giants on high bars and I could do handstand on rings and, muscle ups and all those kind of things were pretty simple, basic things. So, so the owner of that gym asked me to help him out one day, and then just noticed something in me that he felt like I had a knack for coaching and spotting and just understanding kind of like spatial awareness. And so took me under his wings and started coaching me to be a coach and started teaching me from like very ground level, like working with little kids.
And we're talking in your teenage years. Like this is kind of like
18
when you're maybe your goals and aspirations might be, hey, I want to take this as far as I can, or who knows, like you're competitive, and all of a sudden this guy sees something completely different inside you, huh?
Yeah, no, super cool. Well, the performing part of gymnastics was simply a recreation to stay in shape and just do something active and fun. And I mean, it's cool to be able to flip and do all those neat things with your body, obviously. But yeah, and then the coaching aspect of it, I didn't even think twice. He just saw me out spotting some of my fellow adults in the tumbling class. I was just spotting them on their back flips or tricks, whatever they're doing. And yeah, so he noticed that I kind of had a little knack for it, and yeah, started coaching me to be a coach, which was super fun, and it was a good way to bide my time while I was, living in that city that didn't have a whole lot else to offer. And so he actually made a call down to San Diego after I spent almost a year there, and said, "Hey, I'm moving away to go to school." So he called down to San Diego, called the program at San Diego State. And the program at San Diego State was a club program that taught kids. It was a nonprofit club program that was in the same facility that used to be their collegiate gymnastics program. Like San Diego State, apparently back in the 60s and 70s, had one of the most powerhouse women's collegiate programs. And then they lost the program due to Title IX at some point. But the head coach of that team was able to keep the program going as a nonprofit booster and just let kids come in and train. And his one of his former gymnasts, he eventually married. I think after she graduated, they married, and so she ended up running the program for 30 years. Yeah, I know. There's definitely a trend.
Look at I will give Foz, and I'm going to haul past this one. I had this conversation last week. Dave, we'll jump around a little bit, but I used to coach at US CrossFit, which was like an OG CrossFit gym in Encinitas, California.
I've been there with Mark Devine, right?
Mark Devine. So Mark's my old boss. Mark's a dear friend of mine. And quite literally, I know of 4 marriages that came out of the coach to client relationship, including yours truly. I met my wife at that gym. 10 years later, we have 2 children, and
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, I
don't judge those situations. Like sometimes that's where the spark flies, and you got to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, at least they're in a college setting where everybody's an adult, with the owner of that gym or the founder of that program. But so my owner calls down there and says, "Hey, I got a young coach moving down there to go to school. You should bring him in for an interview." And so I thought I had a job lined up the minute I got to town, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Like I could never get a hold of the guy. Every time I tried to call up to come in for an interview, I would always get blown off. And so I got frustrated and just started looking in the phone book for different facilities. And the first independent gymnastics gym I walked into, I got a job and coached there for the next 4 years. And so, and then years later, ended up getting a job at San Diego State, and that's where I finished my coaching career. And it's where I met my wife, who used to be a gymnast in the program, but now she was a college student and she was just a coach at the program. She'd given up competing, but she was just a coach, and so that's that story.
Nathan, let's put a little timeline on that one offline. We'll do this afterwards. We'll make it into the show notes.
I got
correlation of David's time, his wife's trajectory in that school. All consenting adults. Hey, man,
do some math. Yeah. So
Look at you, you know, you
the,
marry someone who's athletic, and you know you're hanging out with athletes. It's going to keep you athletic, keeps you sharp, and
Yep,
I'm all in favor of that. So sorry, Nathan,
absolutely.
where were you rolling?
no, and say like, so was it your, because for a lot of people, like, because then obviously you got into the CrossFit world very early on. Was it, did you not, I don't know, did you get tired of gymnastics, or like what was the step that ended up taking you into a CrossFit gym?
So from coaching gymnastics, I ended up getting into real estate, and I cut down on the coaching aspect. And I was coaching full times, and yeah, at one point I thought that was going to be my career path. Like I really enjoyed coaching, and thought I would eventually own a gym one day and coach gymnastics. Um, but that's just a really tough business to be in. It's really, yeah, it's it consumes you, and working with kids is wonderful, but they consume you. It just takes a lot of energy to be good at it. You can't just be
Yeah.
kind of a
It's a labor of love, absolutely,
it
and it
really
is
is.
absolutely between the kids and then more recently the parents.
Yep.
You really, are hyper involved in those lives, which is
Hundred
amazing
percent.
to be able to shape them, but also like again, how much time and energy do you have towards that? So
Hundred
real estate.
percent. Yeah, yeah. So my brothers had already gotten into real estate, and they saw that I was kind of wavering on what my career path was going to be. So they said, "Hey, just get your real estate license. Come work with us until you figure out what you want to do." And I ended up in that career for over a decade, almost a decade and a half, in real estate. And so um, only found CrossFit after the '08 crash, when the real estate crashed, and I had a lot of time on my hands because there wasn't a whole lot of business happening. A buddy of mine had been trying to get me to join him at the CrossFit gym for most of 2007. He's like, "Dude, you got to come do this. This is awesome. You got to come try this." And this was my ski buddy. We'd go on ski trips together, and everything he described just sounded horrible. Like I had no interest in doing it at all. And then after the
Wait,
crash, you know.
did he give you that nod of like you might throw up after a workout? It's the coolest.
Well, the funny thing is, he did not give me that warning, but I did throw up my first day. And he was goading it on the whole time because, yeah, back in those days, right? That was your badge of honor. Like, walked in and scaled the entire workout, just slogged my way through this relatively easy workout, and then Ralph went outside. And at least I had the presence of mind to go throw up in the trash can outside. So yeah, it
You're
wasn't
polite.
bad.
You're a polite guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was it. That was it. Loved it.
Those were
Fell
the
in love.
days.
I
Those were the
know.
days, man.
Good old days. Good
Yeah.
old days
So
for
so
sure.
2008, you get your very first workout, and you didn't run
Mm.
for the hills though.
No, what's funny is while I was there, I was kicking myself like, this is stupid. I can't believe I let myself get talked into this. My buddy's an idiot. And just, it was 5 in the morning, right? The early AM class. And then after I got home, brushed my teeth, get all the vomit taste out of my mouth, you know, take a shower, have a cup of coffee, and then, you still feel those endorphins like flushing through your body, and you just all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I did something, right? And in all transparency, I was pretty sedentary for probably a decade leading up to that day. I was really sedentary, and just I got in this hyper focused mode of just trying to run my real estate business, and of course the marriage and kids and then mortgages, and then running the business, hyper focused. So really stopped all like organized exercising. My exercise was going skiing in the winters and just kind of, doing busy things, but not actually exercising. So that was amazing. Like that day, that indoctrination is exactly what I needed, to get kind of a punch in the face and, get woken up. And yeah, so the guy that brought me into CrossFit, his name is Dave Stroop. And, our kids started kindergarten together. That's how we became buddies. And then we became ski buddies. And so I credit him as being my vampire, right? He's the one that bit me and turned me for life. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so he's a good dude. And then the gym that I started at is the same gym I'm at today. Like I've been at the same gym now for 16 years. In
What
fact,
gym is that?
it's CrossFit East County, CrossFit East County, owned by Paul Flores, and Paul found CrossFit in '07. He affiliated in '07. So he's one of the earlier gyms in San Diego, and he, went to the games a couple times in the early days of the Master. Like the first year that they had a Master was in 2010 in Carson, and he was in that first class of Masters and got on the podium, took third place that year. So just super, super cool guy. But he and his wife own and operate CrossFit East County. And we've been fortunate enough that, we're in a building here in El Cajon. And if I go out my roll-up door, I look right into his roll-up door. So his gym is right there across the driveway. So it's pretty awesome.
That's
Nice.
fantastic. I've actually been to his gym. I know CrossFit East County, and I've been to your facility before. Eons ago, I was probably there with Nathan.
I've never been.
You did some work with Barbells for Boobs way back
We
when.
did. We did.
Everyone's
Yeah.
favorite CrossFit nonprofit for a number of years.
Yep.
And you guys had made some pink custom jump ropes. And I remember I was doing some consulting work for them. This must have been 2012 maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Early on. But I remember going down there for a workout. It was the first time I met you. And I was just sort of there to kind of help facilitate whatever was needed. Nathan, I think you were working at Barbells for Boobs at the time.
I've
Maybe it was a
never
little
been
before.
to the RX facility. I remember I really wanted to go, but they were like, they ended up sending a couple other people, more like the partnership side, because I was more like copywriting type stuff.
Yeah.
And that would have been like 2016, very into 2015 into 2016. So,
Well, I'm going to back up a step because I just jumped the shark a little bit on that one. How in the world did you get into focus on jumping rope? Not RX Smart Gear, but the that component of coordinated gymnastic physical fitness.
I think I lost you on that. I buzzed out. What was
Oh,
the
no worries.
question?
I said, how did you get started with skipping rope, with jumping rope, with kind of finding a focus on that? Prior to starting the company, how did that get a spark inside of you? Because I only know you as David Newman, founder of RX Smart Gear, and it's the most popular rope in all of CrossFit, and it's in every gym that you go to. That's what I know. But how did it start? Because when we met, you had the business, it was established, it was like a jumping rope mecca, if you will, for CrossFit.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Two words I can describe our the impetus for jump ropes: shame and humiliation. Shame and humiliation. I kid you not.
those are
Like-
big motivators.
Huge motivators, shame and humiliation. So after I got into CrossFit and got sucked in and just, went crazy. I mean, I fell in love and just, two things that's happened in my life. My wife got me into scuba diving. I had no interest in scuba diving back in the day when we started dating. And she was already certified. She got certified again as a high school PE curriculum course. She got certified in scuba diving. So when she and I started dating in college, she said, "Hey, you ever thought about scuba diving?" And I said, "Nope, no interest whatsoever." Next thing I know, she signs me up and I got certified, went hook, line, and sinker. And then I went and got my advanced open water. Then I got my rescue dive. And then I went all the way to my dive master. I was super, she became a dive widow because I just lived, in the ocean during that period. And so same thing with CrossFit. As soon as I got into CrossFit and fell in love with it, man, I was going 3 times a day. I just could not get enough of it. So I got decent pretty early on. I got fairly decent at most things CrossFit, not great at any one thing, but decent. And, back then, our workouts were pretty basic, you know what I mean? Basic CrossFit workouts, all the benchmarks and whatnot. But I got to where I was winning most of the workouts, right? I mean, against our buddies back then, it was always a competition. So I was beating,
always.
yeah. The guy that got me into CrossFit, the owner of the gym, everybody that, had a head start on me, in the early day, they were kicking my ass every single day. And then I eventually caught up to them. And then I passed them, right? To where I was winning most of the workouts. And unless it had double unders, if it had double unders, they were just licking their chops. They're like, "Oh, dude, you're going down." They knew that I just was so inconsistent. And I was just like, literally a flapping chicken with his head cut off, just trying to squawk my way through a set of double unders. It was really horrendous, and it became
And for the
good.
uninitiated, a double under is when you're skipping rope, and instead of just doing a single jump to a single skip of the rope, you're actually doing two skips of the rope. So the rope has to work in a very coordinated manner to go fast enough so that your single jump has two skips of the rope underneath it. And it just dials up the aerobic capacity just a punch and changes the entire dynamic of skipping rope. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, great description. That's exactly correct. And yeah, it was just a shit show, and everybody knew it. And so that was the shame and humiliation. Like, and they didn't hold back, right? Like they knew, double unders, Newman, you're effed. You know what I mean? Like they just
Yep.
it was an ongoing thing. So I'm like, all right, this has got to stop. Like I've got to figure this out. And so that was the sole focus was to help me figure out that movement and understand it, just so I could like just mash these guys and take it to them. You know what I mean? Like that was the
Yeah.
one thing. So
If
that
I
just
was
show up.
programming those workouts, Dave, I would start every workout with 100 double under buy-in. Like, it's gonna take me 1 minute. It's gonna take you 7 or whatever.
100%, 100%. That's exactly, yeah,
Mean.
yeah,
That's just mean, Nathan.
yeah.
So I'm gonna break in on one story at US CrossFit Seal Fit, and I too, I feel like I'm your spirit animal on this one, David. I was so bad for so long at double unders. Quite frankly, I still lack technique in any way, shape, or form. But it used to really, I'd get really mad about it. Like I'd be hot headed, so I'd be in the middle of a workout mad, which is like everyone else is just like, yes, we're
Yep.
gonna keep fucking with them and mess with them. So I'm outside, and there's a yoga studio where like all the hippies go to, and it's US CrossFit owned by Mark Devine, Navy SEAL, back alley where we would do a lot of our outdoor workouts, and then hot yoga studio, Yoga Tropics or something like that was right around the corner. And I'm back there and I'm skipping rope and there's the side of the building right here, and I'm just getting madder and madder and madder and madder. And I can't link them up. I'm in my head's exploding. And at one point I grab the rope, swear at the top of my lungs, like, fuck,
Yeah.
throw the rope, and it's a big tin sided building, hits it like so loud right as this like old hippie's walking by,
Oh.
and he's like going to his yoga class, sees me just all throw the rope, smashes against the wall, loudest noise ever, and he just sort of looks up. He's like, looks at me,
Yeah.
and just keeps walking. I'm like, all right, something's got to change.
Yeah, you need some Zen. You need some Zen in your life. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Sounds like
Horrible.
you need
It was
the
a
Rapid
pivotal-
Fit 2.0, Sean.
Pivotal moment in me. Then after that, I'm like, I better learn how to do the double under. I gotta
That's so
learn how to
funny.
do this. Like, check the ego at the door. Like, this is bananas.
I wonder if that was
Um,
one of our ropes that you threw, because we used to set you guys up with ropes. We did all the branded, seal fit ropes up there for Mark.
Yep. And that one warranty item when the bearings blew out of it, that was my fault, and I apologize for that.
That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah, you'd be amazed. That is such a common story. Like that, I've heard that. I lived it myself, and you just described it to a T. And that happens. It's so pervasive, like in the CrossFit like stratosphere. It's amazing that it happens worldwide. And the funny thing is once truly you understand the movement, you realize that it's probably one of the easiest movements in CrossFit. It really should be. And I tell people that
Yep.
it's one of the easiest movements in CrossFit. Requires some coordination, obviously, and just understanding of timing, and really just having the right priorities in place of what you're trying to accomplish. And that's where people are lacking, just the understanding of what those priorities should be. But it's such a simple movement. And I also try to stress this to all the gym owners, because I truly believe this, but it's a dual purpose. I know that it'll keep us in business, and hopefully we'll sell more ropes. But if you can teach your members double unders, to me, that's truly one of the core pure CrossFit movements where somebody feels like a CrossFitter, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, not all of them are going to muscle up. Some are going to get a handstand push up. right? But everybody can do burpees, everybody gets pull-ups, everybody gets a light snatch, a light clean and jerk. But if they can do double unders, they feel like, yeah, I'm a CrossFitter. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And there's people that have gone. I've had people that have come to me. I've been CrossFitting for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Can't do seriously, can't do double unders. They're just it's the bane of their existence, and they've just never changed what they were trying to
The
accomplish there.
technique
So
and just, yeah,
yeah.
like I think that mindset going into, I mean, I was mentally just an absolute, I mean, I would jump so high up
Hmm.
in the air and just be ripping this rope around
Yeah.
before, like, I remember you like telling me just, hey, why are your elbows chicken winging out? Like, just pull them in. And have you ever considered this just in the wrist? Like, just in the wrist,
Yeah.
like these little nuanced changes. And then you were just like, I remember you telling me about how much energy I was expounding to try and do this one thing. And he's like, it's totally inefficient. And it was the
Yeah.
efficiency thing that really helped change it. And I imagine that every student gets different things unlocked for them to understand, like, hey, like, what are my mental blockades? But you've magically done that, which kind of leads to the question, like, I mean, how many seminars do you think you've done? Have you kept count of how many people you've taught this amazing movement that is so explosive in your aerobic fitness and what you're able to accomplish using a simple tool like a jump rope?
I say
Like,
people,
how
it's
many do
got
you
to be
think you've done?
thousands. Like,
Yeah, tens of thousands actually, probably. But I wish I knew. That would be really cool. Kind of like, McDonald's, a billion burgers sold. I mean, I really wish I knew what that number is. But, we also like during the pandemic, we filmed our entire methodology, our entire presentation that we do like at Power Monkey Camp or if we come to a gym. We filmed it in like a 5-part video series, very, very detailed, just turned the camera on and just went through the entire, thing with a demo person and put it out there for free, just to kind of give people something during the pandemic to work on and hopefully get better at that skill. So I don't know how many people through that maybe got their first double under, but yeah, I would say it's got to be in the tens of thousands, just because after 15 years of doing it, and traveling all over the world, I mean, it's pretty fun, when people get that skill, especially people that have struggled, right? Like you and I both know that feeling. Yeah, you and I both know that feeling, and it's funny. There are people out there who picked up double unders like first try. They're like, oh, these are easy, and they just were able to figure them out like they were just a natural at them, and those people just don't get it, and then, we'll put out a tutorial or put out some tips, and I'll see comments where people are like, yeah, that's kind of silly. Like, nobody needs to do that. These are easy, right? Like, they just don't get it. They don't understand what people are going through.
Yeah. Well, they
it's
don't.
interesting. Well, I was gonna
But
say
like
it's interesting. Go ahead, Sean.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say
You
it's
go.
interesting because like for the longest time it was double unders were like, and you mentioned this day, like double unders were the movement that makes you a CrossFitter. It's like if you can do that, you're a CrossFitter. And now I would almost make the argument that crossover is taking that, like just that new skill set.
Yeah, yeah, naturally so, but because there's got to be an evolution, right? Like the skills have to get a little bit more difficult. There's still so many people who can't do a crossover, or excuse me, just a regular double under, and so that I think that's still the higher percentage of kind of CrossFit members that would be the base skill that they might still be struggling with, and then yeah, the people who picked up double unders relatively easily, yeah, now it's crossovers to them. And it should be that way, right? Like there should be layers of skill building that people can kind of keep working their way up the ladder. And in our big approach, just because I was the same as everybody else. Like that's all you thought about when you got into CrossFit. You start off with your single under, and then you get your double under, and then maybe you start working towards triple unders, but that was pretty far off. So it was always singles, doubles. Those so like tunnel vision with those skills. And in the last, gosh, 7, 8 years, we started really expanding how we look at actually probably longer than that, because when we started working with USA Boxing, we became the official partner to USA Boxing, and we get to travel up to Colorado Springs and work with the athletes up there, and USA Wrestling also. And so as we started getting into more outside of CrossFit and getting into kind of more just sport performance and looking at how jump rope is not just used in a workout, but used for sport performance, right? Enhancing and developing your sport. We started getting into more of the universal movements, from just single under crossovers, running in place, alternating steps, side swings, those type of things. And so it CrossFit just really missed the mark for so many years, just having tunnel vision on double unders. Like, there's so many more fun things you can do. I almost, like, honestly, for the last almost 2 years, if double under workout comes up, I'm not doing double unders. I'm subbing out, and I'm doing usually single under crossovers is my go-to, and single under crossovers, but while running in place, right? Alternating foot, running in place, crossovers, swapping arms, right? So you're alternating your arms as well, right? Which arm's on top? And I find that to be so much more challenging and fatiguing and time consuming. Like, it's just, for me, it's a better workout, because double unders, I've gotten so efficient at them that they're kind of a joke. It's kind of like when people say that, oh, that's your rest period during a workout, then that means you're not getting anything out of it. You're resting. You're not getting anything out of it, right? It's not challenging you. It's not pushing you. So why do it, right? It should be more challenging. So
For
in a
some of
workout,
us, that will never be the case. But yeah, for some folks, all right. So Glenn, who, Navy SEAL,
Yep.
bub, like, the archetype of our business.
Yep.
He was the guy who could knock out 100 double unders in a minute. Just
Nice.
And made it look like it was effortless. I mean, I don't think his feet didn't leave the ground more than an inch and a half, 2 inches. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was art. Those people at the gym that can do that, like when Glenn would do that, it'd be like he's putting on a clinic. And then you got people like me jumping 6-8 inches off the ground, like swinging our arms around, trying to link two together. And it just would look god awful. So yeah, man, it's an act of beauty when you get it. And some people, they just unlock that. And each movement's different. I mean, I remember Glenn taught me how to do a muscle up. It took 3 tries.
Wow.
And he was so pissed because he's like, it took him like 6 months to do his first muscle up. But he was a great coach. Like, he could articulate things well. I remember, like, after my 3rd try, I'm like, oh, just turn over and push. And he's just like, I hate you. I hate your face. Go do some double unders.
That's awesome.
I hate you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I hate you. Go do something you're really bad at for a while, because that's going to make me feel better.
Hey, I wanted to ask, sorry to divert, but I wanted to know how Glenn got the nickname Bubs.
You know what? I love that you asked that question. So I don't know. I have spent time with Brandon Webb, Shane Hyatt, Mike Ritland, Clint Emerson, like these guys that they spent a decade with Glenn. Part of them was giving, like, that nickname, that call sign came out of that experience. And as best I can tell, it was because Glenn always had this kind of surfy, ski bum, like, bro persona. And, like, he was just everyone's bub. But he never said that. Like, that wasn't part of his vernacular. So, man, when I find out, I'm going to call you and let you know. But it still is like one of those little mysteries, which I kind of like, that like, we don't really know the answer to it.
That was you did an episode. It was either Mike Ritland or Clint Emerson, Sean, where you asked them that, and they were like, he just was Bub. Like, there wasn't an answer. They were like, that's just who he was. Like,
he was. There
wasn't an answer.
He was everyone's Bub.
Yeah.
And he got that in the teams. That's where it came up.
He got that in the teams. Yeah, it never existed prior to him joining the Navy. Like, literally, Bub came up. He just came home and he was Glenn Bub. And I'm like, what's that? Like, you're not Glenn Bub. You're Glenn. And then he's like, nope, I'm now Bub.
Wow.
I'm like,
and you guys were childhood friends? You guys were childhood friends, grew up together?
Yeah. So I met Glenn. Ooh, nice party balloons there.
What is that? Was that in mine?
Oh, we're gonna try to do that again. I don't know if we can
That's
simulate
weird.
that one. I like that though. Anyways, so Glenn and I met in like the 8th grade, 7th grade, both in Winchester, Massachusetts, and little small town. Became buddies during high school, and just like both middle children, older brothers, younger sisters, like our families were very mirrored. And we both just kind of have this little wild gene in us, like that middle child, like I'm kind of ignored and I'm going to go and be a little bit rebellious. And that's what we did. We
Nice.
just literally ski bummed, dropped out of college together, moved to Utah, um, and
No
just
way.
had these
That's
wild
awesome.
adventures. Oh yeah, like very unconventional path. Like Glenn went to college at Embry-Riddle to become an airline pilot, dropped out to be a pro skier. I dropped out of college in New Mexico to become a professional snowboarder. We settled on Utah as our launch mountain. And, at 25, he's like, ski thing's kind of rough. So he decides to join the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. Like this is in
Wow.
like 1994, like
Wow.
there's no internet to help him like
Yeah.
understand what BUDS training is, what, naval special warfare is, any of that stuff. It was just, I think I can do that. I'm going to go for it.
Wow.
So,
What was your home hill in Utah?
snowbird.
Snowbird. That's
Yep.
awesome. That's a
Yep.
beautiful mountain.
I
So,
spent darn near a decade at Snowbird in the 90s. It is a phenomenal mountain. Little Cottonwood Canyon is just will
yep.
always have a place in my heart. And yeah, man, we spent a lot of time backcountry in resort, chasing powder. Glenn would go down to Moab and be a river guide in the summer. I'd paint houses in Park City or move around, do different construction jobs, and it was just an epic existence there. And then
That's
eventually I
amazing.
started going to college in the summer and the fall. So I would chip away. When Glenn joined the Navy and like went and got all serious about life, I was like, I should probably get serious too. So
Does
back to
Glenn has a
college.
run named after him there.
He
Does he
does.
really?
Yeah. So the ski resort has a long-standing relationship with the U.S. Navy and the SEAL teams. So a lot of the mountain-based SEAL teams do annual winter training out of Snowbird, and it's been established. They were doing it back in the 90s when we were there. We just
Wow.
never understood what it was. There would just be like these guys dressed in all white skiing down the mountain, in these like little packs, and we just knew that they were military and they did their own thing, and no one paid any attention to them, and they were just doing their thing. Um, but when Glenn passed, the mountain really raised their hand, and they dedicated a run right near Tower Three called Glenn's. And
Oh, that's Glenn's. Okay.
yeah, so that run, if you run down the Cirque, ride down the Cirque Traverse, right before Tower Three, dropping in on the Wilbur side, um, is they called it Glenn's. We had petitioned them to call it Glen Shot, and the reason for that is that specific run was one of Glenn's favorite runs when he was living at Snowbird. That was his like end of the day go-to run because it was the shoulder line that always had powder would blow into it a week after a storm. So you could always harvest it for a little fresh snow. And he's like, "Oh, let's go do
Nice.
Glen Shot." And that's just what we called it. And then the resort was like, "Well, given what happened in Benghazi, we don't want to call it Shot. So we'll just call it
Ah,
Glens." And we're like, "You know what? That's cool." And
yeah.
so yeah, in January of 2014, they dedicated the run to Glens, and it's part of the trail map. It's a really neat honor that they bestowed on remembering the fallen. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. That's super cool. Well, I'm gonna have new meaning now when I go there and go ski there. I can't wait to go hit Glen Shot. Now,
Yeah.
question, when he was with the teams, did he get to go back and train at Snowbird as a team member? Did he, if he went and skied?
No, no, that was the cruelest thing. Like he was at SEAL Team
Wow.
3, and like I think he did his mountain training like up in Alaska or something, which is also cool.
Yeah.
But he didn't really get a lot of Utah time. He'd go to Utah during his breaks.
Okay.
So he would fly out all the time if he was in between deployments or he had a little window. He would shoot right out to Utah and get, a couple days of skiing in.
That's amazing. God, what a great story. That's so cool.
Yeah, he
So
had a
cool.
fun run there, literally from, Bostonian to college dropout to professional ski bum to Navy SEAL. I mean, these are
Yeah.
the unscripted paths we all take in life.
What a trajectory for sure. Yeah, my youngest, my 20-year-old, spent a winter at Alta and was on their lifty crew, and so he did the one season of ski bumming it, and I had some pretty fun stories to tell. So
Yeah.
it was.
Was he living up Canyon? Was he living up Little Cottonwood, like in the
Yeah,
dorms?
yeah, they live right there at the base of Collins Chairlift, and like
Yeah.
there's like 30 dorm rooms, literally like a dorm, just bunk beds. These were the shittiest little dorms. I mean, the place was kind of gross, but they had like almost homemade looking bunk beds and a dresser like that, and maybe a little sofa or yeah, like love seat sofa, but that was 20 years old and just stunk. And yeah, and he
What a
did a
life.
and he that was 2 winters ago, which that was the year that they got record snowfall, like 900 plus inches. It was just
Yep.
insane. They spent so much time shoveling out, that it was just insane.
Yeah,
So
that was literally one of the best, I think one of the best winters ever on record, period.
yeah,
Well, good year to be out there and go ski bumming, man. That's good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I
Didn't
was super jealous.
Sean, didn't Glenn do his first year as a lifty at Alta?
He did. Yep. So Glenn's first year when we were 19, 18 years old, he didn't get hired at Snowbird, and because he was a skier, he was like, well, the only other place I can go is I got to go to Alta and get a job. So his first job was as a lift operator at Alta. So he and my brother Guy did that their first season, and then he migrated down to Snowbird his second season.
Very cool, very cool. So quick trivia that my son taught me. Do you know what ALTA stands for?
How
Uh,
do you?
It's it's an acronym.
wow. Okay.
So
I
my
was going to
son,
think about something about lame skiers, but couldn't come up with anything on the spot. What do you got for me?
my son said it stands for a long traverse ahead. A
Okay.
long traverse ahead. I
So,
don't know.
so for those folks that like to ski Alta, you've got a lot of chairlifts all around this base, this big wraparound, and Alta is famous for its traverses. So it is literally like you just traverse everywhere to get to these great little ski shots. And I've skied Alta a few times, and it's literally like traverse, 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 traverse for a mile, and then ski a line, traverse some more, ski a line, and the whole
Yeah.
mountain is like lines down, traverses across, lines down, traverses.
Yep.
So yes,
Yep.
he's not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what he tells me. But yeah, that's what a cool history, man. Super
Oh
stoked to
yeah.
hear that. Thanks for
So
sharing
so
that
tell me
story.
about the spark. Like I got to dive back in on jumping rope. I mean, obviously you made jumping rope your bitch because it owned you for a long time, and you said, "No way, I'm not having this." And when did the spark come to say, "You know what? I'm going to design a rope. I'm going to make this better," because we know the equipment we had back in 2008 in a CrossFit gym.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty shitty.
I
No,
think
it was.
was it the Buddy Lee? Was that the main rope back
Buddy
then?
Lee was the premier rope. Yeah, that was the first real quality. I definitely give Buddy a lot of credit for like, making a very quality product early on. And so you were lucky if you found one of his ropes in the gym, honestly, like because those were pretty nice ropes, but most gyms didn't have that. They had, much cheaper, just basic we call them licorice or gummy cord, right? So they're just a soft kind
Yeah.
of PVC cord, no cable running through it. And same with Buddies. Like that was the problem with Buddies rope. A couple people in the gym had Buddy Lee ropes, and I would try with those as well. So it was definitely an evolution, and this happens even today, which just boggles my mind that it would, because it shouldn't. But a gym would have just a smattering of crappy ropes on the wall, and new members who don't have their own rope would go just grab one and try it, and if they didn't like it, grab a different one, try it until they find one they feel somewhat comfortable with. And that's what I went through, right? I had my favorite rope that had like green handles and a gray cord, a gray licorice cord, and I'm like, okay, that's the one that I was able to get two double unders, almost two double unders, whatever. That's the one I would target every time I got to the gym. Um, yeah, so then from there, I just thought, well, let me go buy a jump rope. And so I went to the sporting goods, and I would buy a jump rope thinking that that's going to help me with some consistency. Never really panned out. So I'd go buy a different one. I call that the golfer's mentality. If either of you have ever golfed, when you hit a big slice, it's like, well, it's the club. Let me go get a different club, right? Let me go buy a stiffer shaft or bigger club head or something to try and fix the slice. So just, buying different jump ropes and never experiencing any real improvement or consistency. So then I started just Frankensteining the things that I liked about different ropes together, right? So the jump rope handle, I have a little rack here. So the jump rope handle, this was the original handle that I found in a Big Five sporting goods store, and it just had a black PVC coming out of it and had a foam sleeve over it, as your grip was a foam sleeve. And that was one of the ones I had purchased, and so I stripped that apart, and um, and then attach cabling to it, right? And so that's what I realized. I just started kind of like taking a look at all the variables and trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I control the variables to at least put myself in the best environment, right? And so the things that I figured out for myself were that the stretchy cord, the PVC cord, like that was the issue even with Buddy Lee ropes, is that they stretch and then they retract. So the faster you spin it, it stretches, right? That centrifugal force pulls it long. And then if you slow down, it retracts. And so if you're not used to that or aware of that, then you're tripping up constantly. So cable didn't do that. If you had cable, it was a static length no matter how fast or how slow. So that was key number one. The second thing was just the right weight. Something that had, what I figured out for me was, again, like between 3 and 4 ounces of weight was way better. Just so that I could slow the rope down, the rope would still have inertia, and I could time things out better. So that's what I figured out. And again, this is all just like self-exploration, like what feels good to me, right? It didn't give a shit about anybody else. I don't care what they thought about it. It was my own little concoction, my own cocktail, jump rope cocktail. And then the other thing that I figured out for myself was just that I wanted, like, this was the thing. So I don't own this handle. I've never owned this handle. It had been on the market for, probably decades before I started building my stuff onto it. But the swivel connection at the end, that's what I patented, right? So just allowing the cable to not only rotate on this axis, but also have this omnidirectional motion. So that allows you to have a more relaxed wrist and still keep the rope on line,
Because I always thought you were using like a skateboard bearing and then had a swivel head on the end of it. It's like, I always liked it for that. I was always like, RX is cool. They got skateboard bearings in there.
It looks like it. Yeah, it definitely looks like it. But honestly, the handle came with the bearing. That was all one piece, and then I just added the swivel guts to it. And then one day I was passing by. I was going in to buy more jump rope handles. In the early day, I would just go to the local Big Five and I would buy every jump rope with these handles. I would just buy them off the rack. And then I would deconstruct them and build ropes for all my friends in the gym, and then go give them ropes. And so one day I'm walking by the tennis section and they had tennis over grip. And so I thought, hey, that's kind of interesting. These foam sleeves really suck because they'd slip off.
Oh, yeah.
And so I bought tennis over grip and I started wrapping the handle with over grip. And I'm like, wow, that feels fantastic. And I can do black and pink and yellow and all the different colors. So we were the first ones to ever kind of pioneer that, like putting that on your jump rope handle. And now if you look around or look on Amazon, like everybody does it now. So that was kind of our contribution.
Well, I don't want to call it tinkering, but like that, the whole like almost kind of Frankensteining different pieces of different stuff. Was that all you, or did you have like a buddy who you're like, what do you think about this? Or how did that come about?
So yeah, no, it was all me. Like it was just my kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Fanaticism, right? Like I was just like so in tune to like fixing. I'm telling you, shame and humility or humiliation are amazing motivators to drive you, right? And so I remember when I started making jump ropes and bringing them to the gym, all my friends in the gym would make fun of me. Like it became a laughing joke. Like first I was really bad at double under, so I was a joke for that. And then they were starting to prod me about, that I'm making jump ropes. Because back then, it's kind of a odd hobby, right? It's an obscure thing to do, I guess. And so they would give me a hard time and ribbing about that, all in fun. Like, nobody was ever mean about it, but it was all in fun. And then eventually, once I figured out what I liked and what felt good, and I kind of like narrowed down my parameters of like, okay, because it's people always say like, oh yeah, it's the jump rope. If you're having a hard time, it's the jump rope. Well, that has something to do with it. Your jump rope, what you're using and how it's constructed and how it's sized to fit you can lead you down a bad path or it can lead you down a better path, right? And so that's what I figured out, is that the rope is going to kind of set the bar for me to like understand the movement, get into better mechanical position so that my biomechanics were better. And when my biomechanics are better, that's going to allow my timing to be better. And then you realize that it's all about timing and mechanics. That's all jump rope is timing and mechanics. It's that simple. And it's just like every other skill that we see in CrossFit, every skill we taught in gymnastics, was based on simple progression. You have a foundation. From that foundation, you start layering and building your skills on the foundation. And that's all jump rope is. And so I simply just looked at it from a gymnastic coach's perspective of like, okay, how do I control these variables? How do I minimize the variables and put myself in the best situation to then learn and have more consistency? And it was like a light switch. It was amazing that once I kind of figured that out for myself, that all of a sudden my learning trajectory just shot through the roof. And next thing you know, I was getting pretty good at double unders. And so, of course, all my friends in the gym stopped making fun of me and started asking me if I would make them a jump rope, you know? And so that led to then trying to figure out like, okay, well, there must be some type of a I don't want to say an algorithm because it's not that fancy, honestly, but for lack of a better word, there must be some kind of a formula here to figure out like what size rope should fit a person. You know what I mean? Like that's something there was never anything out available, and there still isn't, other than what we've produced and what other people kind of, you know, maybe parrot or copycat what we put out. But your rope should fit you in a certain way, and that's why we're always big proponents of like knowing your size. Like, what's your size? Like, you know your shoe size, you know your pant size, you know how much you snatch and how much you clean and jerk, and you know how many muscle ups you can do unbroken. But do you know how long your jump rope is? Like something that has a direct impact on your performance. Do you know how long your jump rope is? And most people can't answer that question. They would say like, well, you know, I know when I stand on it, it should come up to about here, you know, and those types of things. And that's such a generic thing that it didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to know to the inch, how long should my jump rope be for my optimal, right? And that's the way we approach it. Like, what is optimal for me, so that if I can use optimal, I'm going to use optimal. But if I have to use suboptimal, if I have to use something else, I can still use it. I know how to compensate and adapt to use something longer or shorter or whatever it might be. So when all of my gym member friends started asking for ropes, basically what I did was just pre-built a bunch of different sizes, and I wrote on the handles how long the cord was, and then took a notepad, wrote down their name. Okay, Nathan, how tall are you? 5'11". Great. Here, try this rope. And I'd have you try the rope. How'd that feel? And I would look at how you were performing with it. Look at your technique, your positioning, like where your hands were, where's the rope hitting the ground, how much is passing over your head. Really just start kind of like mapping out. And then, okay, try this rope, and then give you a different one. Watch you make adjustments to it, and then give you a different rope, until we kind of narrow things down for a very general formula, which is your height plus 3 feet is the longest rope you should ever use. Height plus 3 feet as a standard. But honestly, like, that's the longest you should use, because when you start using anything longer than that, then that really starts pushing you out of reasonable form and takes you into a bad place, right? And when you change your form, you change your mechanics and your muscle recruitment, and that totally changes the movement, right? Like, it literally makes it something different. So you see so many people, or I encounter so many people that say, oh my gosh, double unders, they just tire me out within 20 reps. I'm just dying. My shoulders are fried, all these different things. And 100%, because when you're using all the big muscle groups, right? And you're doing something like double unders, which is a high repetition movement, and you're pumping all that blood into the big muscles, right? Your heart's working harder, right? You start getting the shoulder fry. All of those different things start, kind of spiraling out of your favor. So as you start to shrink that rope around your body and allow your body to be more compact and in a more relaxed positioning, right? Using very little muscle recruitment, then you realize that, wow, you don't have to work so hard. You don't have to use as much of your body as you think. It's so much easier to breathe. The timing of everything is so much quicker and easier. So that's the standard we created, that now is, again, it's prevalent across the world. Everybody, we kind of scope and see what other companies are doing, and a lot of them have adopted that height plus 3 feet. But that's really the ceiling. That's the longest rope anybody should use. And really, you should strive to use something far shorter than that if you can. It should be a journey to test yourself, challenge yourself, how short can you go and still perform all the skills you want to perform and be consistent, have consistency, right? And when you do that, you just open up a whole world. Like there's so many things you can now do with the rope when you're able to do that. And it allows you to use so many different ropes. That's the other thing. When you can use a super, super short rope, that means you can pretty much use any rope, but not the other way
Yeah.
around. If you're used to only a long rope, people have a very hard time adapting to a shorter rope because they just don't have the awareness, and they just feel like they're going to hit their head or they're going to hit their toe without having that understanding and awareness. So yeah, so it's a really cool thing. So that kind of started the whole journey. It's been super fun.
Wild. And here we are now, like, just so many people are indoctrinated to using the product. I mean, my local gym is CrossFit Counterculture, and they just have a giant rack filled with your ropes. And it's like, just go to your height. They've got the size chart. So you perfected all of that because you've taken the guesswork out of it. So I use the gray rope or the black rope because,
Nice.
that's for my height. And then the only nuance there is how thick of a cable do you want based on creating that momentum. Also where your abilities are, like those little light ones can be still a little bit tricky to maintain based on your skill levels.
100%.
But you've literally taken the guesswork out of it and made that movement and that fundamental so accessible for like thousands and thousands and thousands of people in CrossFit. How
Appreciate it.
big is the jump roping world? I mean, is it a massive community? Because I know it through CrossFit. Then I remember seeing like the Buddy Lee and like this sort of offshoot, and I was like, oh, there's a whole culture built around skipping rope. And there's like the old stuff where you like hopscotch and double rope, like
Double Dutch.
basically playground games, hopscotch. That was it. But like, how big is this community? Because you guys are right at the center of it.
Yeah, the funny thing is, jump rope has gotten huge. So jump rope, competitive jump roping has been around for decades and decades. I don't even know when the first competitive jump rope. And the competitive jump rope is what you just described. It'll be a team of kids that, and now even adults, right? But originally it was like a team of kids that would compete in different skills. So double Dutch is one of them. They'd have a team that performed double Dutch, and two people turning two ropes, and then somebody in the middle doing just a diverse routine of really challenging skills and acrobatics and things like that during double Dutch. And then you'd have kids that would compete at speed rope in the same competition arena. Speed rope is, and that's where speed ropes came from. That's what people don't realize is the thin little wire speed ropes, right? Like all the rogue ropes, and we make the Evo jump ropes, and so anything with a super fast bearing and super thin wire, those were developed specifically for these kids that basically run in place, right? Like they stand in one spot, and you've seen them. They have to stoop down because the ropes are so short and it barely clears their head, and they're running in place trying to get as many repetitions in 30 seconds. Well, it's changed, so it's 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 3 minutes. And I think they dropped one. I just met with a competitor recently, and they said they dropped one of those three. They don't do anymore. Maybe it's the 30-second. This 30-second competition they don't do anymore. Now maybe it's just 60 seconds and 3 minutes. But literally, their feet are moving so fast. The judges are trained to only count the right footstep. Every time the right foot strikes, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And that's your score, even though it's double the amount, right? But however many right foot strikes is double the score. So that's why speed ropes were created, and then CrossFitters just kind of adopted it, like thinking, oh, for double unders, I need to go fast, I need a speed rope, which kind of ruined CrossFitter. Yeah, honestly, that ruined CrossFitters because it's the, like, honestly, speed ropes, I have to layer this. Like, I feel like we make the most premier speed rope on the planet. It's the most expensive speed rope on the planet. We don't make any excuses about that. But we also don't think most people should be using it. Like, it's great for competition. When you're in competition and you want something to be effortless, or you're at a little local throwdown or whatever, or if you're in a training session, but you're trying to go fast on purpose, which, you should be specifically, focused on doing that for specific workouts, but not always. Other than that, you really shouldn't be using a speed rope very often. Like I would say 15% of the time tops use a speed rope. Otherwise, you should be using a heavier implement to build more stamina and build more capacity. But anyway, so I got off track. So speed rope was one of the disciplines in competitive jump rope, as well as they would do max triple unders. Well, they would do single and tandem freestyle routines. So that's where the kids that would do the between the legs and jump, and they would run and do some tumbling while they're turning the rope and all these things.
While
right? So,
turning the like it's wild to see.
yeah, they do a backflip and a quadruple. Like they're literally flipping through the air backwards and doing a quadruple rotation around their body before they land. I mean, so you would have doubles competing at that and individuals competing. So you had speed rope, you had freestyle, you had double dutch. That's a whole competition circuit of jump rope that's been around forever. And those kids were, they're kind of those are the kids that aren't usually playing team sports. They're not out playing AYSO soccer or Pop Warner football or whatever, right? They're jumping rope. And I don't want to say they were kind of the nerdy kids because they're phenomenal at what they do, but it was just one of those overlooked sports that didn't get a lot of attention and people didn't give a whole lot of a second thought to. And now those kids are the ones that are have 2 million followers on Instagram, and they're doing all the cool stuff to music, and now they're super rich influencers that are just crushing it out there. So
it's wild. It's wild.
It's really neat.
You get to work with some.
Yeah, definitely. We get to work with a lot of them, and so to answer your original question of how big jump rope is, COVID really helped bring that audience up, right? Because as those influencers started doing these really snazzy routines online with all the latest popular music, that brought a lot of eyeballs. So that's probably the bigger CrossFit or the CrossFit jump rope world is people kind of into that just freestyle backyard, out there having fun, learning new skills. And then you have your segment that uses it, for fitness. Like they use jump rope. Like CrossFit's weird. We use jump rope as simply one of the tools to do a workout. And that's how people look at it. Like, okay, it's one of the things I have to do to get this workout done. But they don't usually look at jump rope as the thing that's giving them fitness, right? Like I'm trying to get more fit using a jump rope. They just look at it as like a skill I have to check off the box to get through the overall workout, along with my clean and jerk and burpees and pull-ups, whatever, right? Whereas there's another segment, like team sports, like volleyball, basketball. Like we supply ropes to the LA Lakers, right? So Nathan, your Rapid Fit, your favorite rope, you're using the same rope that the LA Lakers use, and we sent ropes to Anthony Davis, and he has his own. We put his own special logo on his handle for the Rapid Fit. But so there's a lot of team sports, college, professional, you name it, club sports, basketball, soccer, volleyball, tennis. Tennis not necessarily team, but that use jump rope, to kind of better enhance their specific sport, right? Or they use it to improve their fitness by jumping rope. But CrossFitters, we look at jump rope in a really weird way. You know what I mean? Like it's just a skill to check off the box to do the overall workout. And by doing the overall workout, that's what's making me fitter. But they don't usually think of jump rope as one discipline that helps you get fitter. You know what I mean? So that's always a weird dynamic to try and cross over that threshold. But CrossFit is the one market that really loves their jump ropes, right? Like they're the ones that they want the best, they'll pay for the best. And, whereas like the freestyle genre, I get on a lot of these forums and I'll be on Reddit and different places and kind of see what the discussion is. And they always say just go get a cheap $10 jump rope off Amazon. Like that's all you need. You'll be fine. Don't waste a lot of money on a jump rope. Like it's pretty funny to see the very drastic, kind of philosophies out there. So
you learn on a crappy rope and then you get bit with it and you graduate to a good rope, or you get a feel for it from a good rope. Like there's always that progression. It's like, tennis is the same thing. It's like, just get any racket. Don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, what if?
Right. If you like, our proposition is if you get a good rope from the beginning, that's going to help your learning curve, right? That's going to help you
Yeah.
improve better and gain more consistency. So I mean, I see the argument on both sides, but I'd
I
rather
like
deal
your
with
argument.
quality.
I think get good equipment up front. If you know you're going to do
Yeah,
it, like spend the $50, spend the $60, spend
yeah,
somewhere in that modest range, and then get into it. Don't spend the $10 for just a piece of cable. Like you're not doing it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And now, literally tens of thousands of CrossFitters later, all doing double unders, courtesy of you. And,
Oh,
you know, really, yeah, no, if you run the numbers, I'm going to say that the amount of CrossFitters that have gone through their evolution of fitness, that have used your ropes over the last 15, however many years, like,
15.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, you've touched tens of thousands of lives with better fitness. That's pretty special.
Thanks, man.
Um,
Appreciate it.
and you look at, and you're not done. You're just getting started. So that's the beauty of this is like, people can look out for more and more as they move on. So in their progression, we can shamelessly plug the RX gear and put people in your direction. So that will be in the show notes, folks.
Mm,
Now that being said,
Appreciate
and
it.
obviously, and you've got a ton of seminars that you roll around with, and that you're constantly teaching, and gyms are constantly embracing the methodologies of jump rope progression. So like you're constantly feeding a new community, which is amazing. Um, that being said, we got some questions for you, Nathan. I think we have what we call the rapid fire questions here because
rapid
this is
fire.
how we want to really help folks get to know David. David, please clear your head of any complex thoughts of the jumping of rope, the training of people, the indoctrination into this amazing cardiovascular and gymnastics based coordinated activity. And answer me this. What was your first job?
Very first job. Wow. I would say first job was in Anchorage, Alaska, working at the drive-through window of crud. What was it called? It was kind of like a Dairy Queen type ice cream shop where we
yeah,
actually
Sonic.
made the ice cream. No, it wasn't Sonic. Man, I gotta ask my brother. My brother's got me the job there. I was still in high school. But I didn't work there very long. That job was very short-lived because my brothers quit and they were my ride to get there. So my first real job I'd say is working at a Dunkin' Donuts in the mall in Alaska, the summer of my sophomore year.
Wow.
Duncan.
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
There we go. They didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, Dave, rank these from best to worst. So best to worst, salsa, queso, and guacamole.
Salsa, queso, guacamole. Completely reverse that order, and it's going to be guac, queso, then salsa.
Fair enough.
That's my preference. Love guac. I'm a guac fiend. I don't know why those balloons keep popping up. I have no
Because
idea what's
they
causing
It's like
it.
hand signals.
They support you. They support your choice. Okay.
They like your guacamole choice.
Dude, we're in San Diego. Give me that
How,
guac.
how do I make that happen? I don't know what's causing that.
There's like thumbs up ones too that'll do it, but
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
know what's making
I
that.
I
It's
occasionally
cracking
get
me up.
those. It's not
it always
happening today,
comes up
but
randomly. So
yeah,
That's
maybe
so
these
funny.
ones.
yeah,
Dave's got the power. We're not on for that one. However, next question. Name some hobbies or interests that people don't know about you on social media. For example, you cannot answer jumping rope.
Right, hobbies. So well, let's see. I'm trying to think what qualifies as a hobby. I love riding motorcycles, street motorcycles. So I do that as often as I can. I love paddleboarding, and mountain biking. So these are things I try and get in every weekend. I'll try and make sure I'm out, surfing. I have a group of buddies that I surf with every Sunday. I get out and try and mountain bike with another group of buddies. Some of those buddies overlap between surfing and mountain biking. So I'll get out and do mountain biking. And if I can get on my motorcycles and get some riding in out on my bikes, I love doing that. So those are probably three. And then wintertime, living on the hill. Alaska got me hooked on snow skiing when I was a kid. So love to ski.
Amen. That is a phenomenal answer.
do you have a mantra or piece of advice that you live by?
Oh, that's probably a bunch of them, but one is to never take things too seriously is a big one. The other one is things always aren't what they appear, so
Mhm.
I always try and kind of reserve judgment until I know more or understand more. And treat everybody the same. Those are probably three things that I think are kind of guide my day, right?
Mhm.
So
Those are great. Those are absolutely fantastic. And if everyone can incorporate them partially into their lives, I think we'd all be in a much, much better place.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think it keeps my head clear.
Hands down. What do you do to relax?
My wife and I we've become nighttime couch potatoes. So we find different shows, Netflix shows, series, whatever, like obviously Game of Thrones and then Ted Lasso, and so yeah, so we kind of become Netflix couch potatoes, and so it's super relaxing and get to do it with my best friend and my wife, and yeah, probably
That's
that.
awesome. Nice.
Those
That's
are
a
all
great
good.
one.
That's the end of the rapid fire questions. You don't have to be nervous anymore.
Okay, good.
Uh, I
Wow.
know you're super
I'm
nervous about that.
glad you didn't ask me about my drug habits or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
Oh wait, one final question.
What are you
oh,
crushing up there on the side that you were snoring on off camera? What's
I
that all
know,
about?
I know. Yeah,
Good
it's fun.
Lord.
It's funny because we stopped drinking. My wife and I stopped drinking like a year and a half ago, just for health reasons, just to live healthier. And so I joke about like being a drug addict and being an alcoholic and things like that when we're actually pretty flippin' boring. So
Yeah. Well, it makes it fun to spice up the conversation with folks and be like, oh, really? Oh.
yeah,
And
yeah,
meanwhile, you're
yeah.
like, no, we're not even drinking anymore.
Yeah. Well, all
We
our
can,
friends drink, and so we didn't want them to feel weird, that we're not drinking because we're not judgmental about it at all. Like we think it's great if you want to have drinks, but we just yeah, we stop for, just for our own health reasons and feel great, but nothing wrong with it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, we're kind of in a similar boat where like there are those great nights where we will enjoy having a drink. And I remember like when it started to really dial back, and now it's like, hey, like we're gonna have we'll have a great drink on a Sunday, like a little glass of champagne or something. Like there's a celebratory moment, but it's a glass, right?
Yeah.
It's not a bottle. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I'm down to like I'll run the math, and I'm like, oh, how many drinks did I have this week? Three. Three
Nice.
drinks, just
Yeah.
individual drinks spread out. And old me, it'd be like, well, yeah, I'll have a couple drinks a night. Like, no big
Yeah.
deal. Just like have a beer before dinner, have a glass of wine with dinner. And then, but that's 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
And then somewhere we had kids, and then that went to just weekends only. But then you're like making up for lost time. So you're having a couple of drinks. But somewhere it went from like 14 drinks a week down to 10, down to 8, down to 5, down to
Yeah.
3. And now we'll run like a couple of weeks, my wife and I, where it's like, there's just nothing. And you're like, oh, yeah, God, we didn't even drink last week or the week before that. And then
Yeah.
you have a nice dinner and you're like, oh, let's open a glass of, have a bottle of Pinot. We don't even finish the bottle.
Right.
And you
That's
notice
huge.
these health differences of like
Yeah.
how clear a thought you have, how much energy you bring into the morning, like your ability to interact with others better. Like you're just not clouded. It is awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm not some teetotaler like you. Like I don't care what my friends do. Like, hey, worst case scenario, they've got a driver. In fact, the
Yeah.
last couple of concerts I've gone to, I'm like, cool, I can drive everyone home. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? And you hit it on the head. Actually, go to dinner. Like the first time my wife and I went out to dinner and didn't order any wine, or we like to drink wine back then, and we looked at the bill afterwards and thought, holy cow, this is how cheap dinners can be. Like when you don't order alcohol. We thought they messed up on the bill. We were like, did they only charge us for one entree? Because it
Yeah.
was so much cheaper than we were used to seeing, right? So that was a huge benefit. But yeah,
Pretty cool.
I went from like uh missing it, like, man, I miss having a drink, like just socially with our friends or just casually, like you're saying, with a nice meal. Really missed it to like, yeah, now it's like don't even think about it. It's just like smoking. I don't smoke, never have, and never will. That's kind of how alcohol feels now. Like, oh, although I do have all the memories of like, man, I had some fun times when I used to drink.
Oh yeah. I mean that's the thing. Like I don't. I'm not in the cold turkey camp. I'm in the like. It's under this just like, hey, moderation. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to go to Nashville in 2 weeks and go to a
Yeah.
bunch of honky tonks. Like, yeah, I know I'm going to just thematically have a Budweiser beer
Yep.
or a Coors Long Neck just to like be in the environment. But I won't have six. I won't have five. I
Yeah.
probably won't have two. It's
Yeah.
like I'm totally good with that now. Whereas
Yeah.
40-year-old Sean would have been different. Like that
Right.
version of me would be like, no, man, we're in Nashville. We got to send it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But waking up on that Sunday morning feels a lot fresher now.
Right. The older we get, man, absolutely. Get in your 40s, get in your 50s. Yeah, you're right, man. You definitely feel the difference.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, and it is worth it to just kind of dial that, just kind of tinker with it. Hey, man, if you really love it, go back to it, whatever. But for me, like the amount of energy and kind of just clarity of thought that you can bring into your days is just unbelievable. It's like Huberman scared everyone a year or two ago when he ran his alcohol podcast, and everyone's like, "Oh God." But then again, we're big dumb animals, so it takes us a while to curb those habits.
I like how
Um,
Nathan's sitting quietly over there, not saying a word. So I'm thinking
I
he must toss him back quite a bit.
Missouri boy.
I never, like, my parents weren't big drinkers growing up. Like, if family, like friends over something like that, they would like share a bottle of wine. So like, I was never a huge drinker, and then like I've always like, now it's like if I live in Colorado, microbreweries. If I go have like two, I'm feeling like hangover-esque. I'm like, I had two beers. Why is
Wow.
this? So I just don't really drink a whole lot anyways. So, but yeah, it's like I like waking up not hungover and I can immediately take my dog for a really long walk. Like that's
Yeah.
more appealing to me. So
There you go.
He's trained
Nice.
early. Dave and I had to take the longer road to get there, but
I
yeah,
learned
thanks,
from your
Dave.
guys' mistakes. No kidding.
You're a smart
So
man.
listen, Dave, thank you for joining us today. If people want to learn more about you and RX and what you're doing, where can they find you?
Well, on the website, it's rxsmartgear.com. Instagram is at rxsmartgear. I have my own Instagram that's kind of the more business related. I have two. One's kind of personal, just like posting family stuff and whatnot. But RXSG CEO. So that one I'll try and put things that might be a little bit more interesting to kind of the fitness community, or
Nice.
with regard to teaching or products or whatever.
Yeah. And then we'll make sure
And
to
then-
put those in the show notes too. So if people want to find you, they can just click on there and find it way easier. So
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then
hands
real
down.
quick before we close up, I wanted to throw out there because I've had the opportunity to go through Dave's the 2 hour at Power Monkey, the jump rope seminar. And if you're a coach, take that course. Like whether it's at Power Monkey or somewhere else, like when's the last time as a coach I'm like that you were trained on double unders or thought about training somebody else on double unders? And so to learn from somebody who actually teaches jump rope versus a CrossFitter teaching you how to jump rope, it's an amazing just couple hours. Like you just think about things totally differently, and then it has improved my ability to coach double unders to my athletes. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that one and kettlebells, where it's like, when's the last time you thought about kettlebell swings outside of your intro course a decade ago? So
Right.
um,
Awesome.
but
Appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. So Dave, thank you again for being here. And then listeners, as always, thank you. You can find the Cult of Recreationalism on all podcasting services. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube or our social media. If you look up Bubs Naturals, you're going to find us. And while you're there, leave us a thumbs up, leave us a 5-star review, whatever platform you're on. Every positive review helps. We try to get some more thumbs up going. So Dave, once again, thanks for the time.
John, Nathan, thank you guys both. Had a great time chatting. Learned a lot. Appreciate it.